The health and well-being of our youth is of utmost importance, especially with regards to mental health. Today, I'll be speaking with Sheila Domingue, HR specialist for Sycamores, which is a nonprofit organization that focuses on working with the at-risk youth, providing crisis intervention services, psychological evaluations, as well as a mobile crisis team. We'll talk about Sheila's bigger vision and how she gives back to the community while maintaining who she is at the end of the day and bringing all of her several talents into her current position as an HR specialist. She also serves at Sycamores as a co-chair for the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Department, where she wants to innovate and add new creative ways to not only hear all different perspectives and have that diversity of thought, but to improve upon existing policies to provide even better feedback to her community. Hey Sheila, how you doing?
I am great.
Well, I appreciate you sitting down and taking the time to have this conversation with me today.
Yes, I am so glad to be here, and I appreciate you asking me to be part of this.
My pleasure, absolutely. So for the audience, let's get into your official job title. What do you do for work?
My official job title is HR specialist. I work for a nonprofit organization called Sycamores, and we help at-risk youth, and we do service other communities, homeless. We work in schools. We have a actual site where we do home. I don't know how many young men, but it's all boys, and just kind of help them as they're facing different challenges.
So what inspired you to get into that line of work? Because I understand that's an imperative thing in this community, right? Being able to give back to the youth. What got you into that line of work?
Well, as far as human resources, honestly, I just kind of fell into it. Mm-hmm. But the truth is, human resources is in alignment with my personality, being of service to others, helping others out, and things like that. But as far as the nonprofit, I've just always, as I've worked in the entertainment industry, I've worked in all different types of industries. But what I really wanted was to work for a company, organization that was making a difference in other people's lives. Not just a company making all this money, but someone who's actually making a difference. And with this organization, what I love about it is a lot of our focus is on the youth and children, which that's where we need to start to help them when they're young. So as they get older, hopefully we can help them get to that place where they can strive and thrive on their own.
1000%, I agree wholeheartedly. I've dabbled in a little bit of the working with the at-risk youth in my past experience. And so I understand that there's folks who don't have access to resources, let alone mentorship or programs where they can excel and thrive here in society. So doing that type of work obviously speaks volumes to not just the impact you have on the society at large, but you and your individual character as a person. So, how do you manage this type of work while still maintaining Sheila, still being who Sheila is and maintaining your sanity? How do you balance that work-life experience for you?
Yeah, good question. So, while I'm working, I'm just focused on whatever the task is for that day or throughout the day. And because I'm human resources, I don't get into I don't know of all the details of the stories of what's happening, which for me, it's kind of a good thing because I am a very sensitive, emotional person. But I just know that the people that I am supporting that are doing this type of work, the clinicians, the wellness specialists, and so forth, I'm there to support them as they're dealing with all these, or helping, I should say, these youth. And I'm very happy to be able to help them to however I can to be of service to them as they're being service to them. And there's times I even thank them, for doing the work that they do. And as far as me, to balance it out, I just make sure that I do whatever in that moment after work what brings me peace. Be it writing, be it simply watching TV, or working on my public speaking and things like that.
So I understand you have some experience in Reiki. Is that correct?
Yes, I do. I am a Reiki healer. I was certified back in 2012, I believe it was. And with Reiki, it's about energy healing. And it doesn't mean that if you break your arm, that I can do the work and now your arm is now fixed. It's more so about emotional things or just bringing more peace to you. I have done volunteer work working with hospice, people in hospice, and who were close to transitioning. And I've worked with them doing Reiki with them. And it's something that has really, people are getting more and more into. And even certain hospitals will now have Reiki healers in the hospitals. Because what they find is that a patient, let's say a cancer patient, is really sick. So the Reiki kind of helps them. It helps them feel better. It helps them stay calmer. It helps them in different ways. And the energy itself, it kind of lands where it needs to land, so to speak. So there's hand positions that we could follow, but also intuitively, sometimes it's like, focus right here on this area, because there might be like, the different chakras. There might be something going on in your solar plex that you need to or it's out of balance. So it's a really interesting thing. And when I first experienced myself, I was, I didn't know, and I had doubt about it. But once I experienced it, and this was one of the most beautiful experiences I ever had, that's how I was like, okay, this is something special.
That's great, man. That's amazing, because as you're explaining that, what I'm hearing is how, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm hearing how that's impacted your other avenues of work, where you can bring that Reiki experience in other areas, right? Right now, as an HR specialist, yes, it may not have Reiki specific focused work, but we can't act like that doesn't transfer to other skills, right? In other areas. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with that. I think what it is, being the type of person who wants to help others, being of service to others, and wanting to see people live their best lives. So as a Reiki healer, this is part of who I am. Being HR is part of who I am, but together it's a whole of who I am. And it just kind of mirrors off each other, so to speak. It's a real reflection, I guess, of who I am. And with the Reiki, I also practice on myself. So we could even say, if I do practice on myself and I'm having a bad day and I do the practice, and then I am able to be a better HR specialist to those that I need to help, because I'm doing the self-care for myself.
1,000%. Yeah, and I think that kind of ties into my next point, is that, or the question would be, how do you mentally prepare yourself for work, right? Because I understand at Sycamore, you are an at-risk, program, nonprofit organization dealing with the at-risk youth. That can carry some challenges from a day-to-day perspective, especially, dealing in the HR world that you exist in. So how do you mentally get yourself ready and fired up and geared up for each day?
Each day I start my mornings off with meditation, prayer, and gratitude. And and then as I'm making my bed, I play a certain song that I dance to as I'm making my bed. And it just gets me in that right frame of mind. But also, I always remember, because of course I have my moments, but I always remind myself that I'm here to be of service to the employees, especially, being mindful and having great gratitude for those who are helping the youth. So that's a lot, that they're seeing and that how they're helping. And it's like, so I have to make sure that I show up for them the best I can because they need it, because they have a lot on their plate. And again, I admire them for having the strength to do the work that they do.
Yeah, absolutely. One of the services that Sycamore provides was the mobile crisis teams. Can you go a little bit more into that?
Well, with the mobile crisis team, it's a fairly new program. Is it 2 years now, maybe? And they work with different cities because we have West Hollywood and Beaumont, but more so that whole area, Palm Springs and so forth. And basically, there's someone there, they receive a call, someone's in crisis, and they kind of do an intake, they go out, and it's usually a team, and they evaluate, assess the situation, and a lot of times they might have to call police or firemen, depending on the situation, and they just have to decide what the next step is for this individual. What is it that they need? Do they need to be placed on a hold? Do they need to go in the hospital? And things like that. And sometimes it can be, very, what's the word I want? When people are in crisis, they're not thinking straight, and their behavior, they get agitated, they can get loud and things like that. So it can be draining. That's the word I'm looking for. They love their work, meaning our employees, they love what they do. That's why they're doing it. And that's what they always say, I'm here to help. Yet it can be draining.
Exactly. And that's why I asked, how do you keep yourself, focused, geared up, and motivated to continue to do this? Because we understand usually folks in the service industries often give of themselves so much that they don't leave much room for themselves at the end of the day. And so the fact that you're able to articulate how you not only get yourself geared up in the mornings to prepare for work, but how you also manage the balance of that work life, home life balance, right? And so it keeps you motivated and fresh each day as you runneth over, right? And so you don't want to runneth over to the point where you have nothing left to give and you can't be Sheila at the end of the day.
Exactly. And if I find myself just having one of those days, because we all have one of those days, that's when I'm going to just step back and even, tell my supervisor I'm going to take a minute just so I can gather myself. Because what I don't want to do is to let anything that I might be carrying projected on someone else, especially the employees who are doing this type of work. They don't need any of that. So I always try to make sure that I'm in my best frame of mind for all involved. And I am good if I need to step back, I will take a minute. And there's times in midday I will stop to meditate if I'm having one of those days.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Just to recenter and realign.
I think that's important that you call that out, right? Because regardless of what industry we're in, a lot of times people look at the job as a set of requirements and descriptions. But what they don't take into account is the mental fortitude, the mental aptitude, the mental awareness, the social awareness, the ability to relate to others and empathize, right? That's what really helps working interpersonal relationships at our jobs. So the fact that you not only do that in your personal life, but you bring that and you're cognizant on how to bring that into your professional life, which makes you better suited as an HR support specialist to do your job in even a higher function, right? You also mentioned you co-chair the diversity, equity, and inclusion program there at work. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, so how has that experience been in Sycamore for you?
I first started on just as one of the committees, the subcommittees, about a year ago. And what happened was we had some changes within the organization, meaning some people left. It's not, and are like, okay, we need to redo this. And so my supervisor came to me and she said, hey, do you want to be co-chair? I'm like, sure. So it's me and another co-worker and she's in a whole different area than me. She's not even human resources. She does more of the clinical stuff. And so it's been interesting because we're kind of right now we're reformatting it. We haven't actually come up with what exactly it's going to look like. But what we have done in the past, we will certain months, each month we'll find different awarenesses that month, be it breast cancer, let's say month, or Pride Month, things like that. And we'll either sometimes we do live calls or meetings, webinars, and we'll have different speakers, or we'll talk about different topics, people can ask questions, or we'll send out a newsletter about the different, whatever it may be that we're focusing on that month. And we at one point were doing things to try to keep, like for instance, it was retention, making sure that we're keeping a good diverse group of people in the agency. But like I said, now we're looking at everything and trying to really see how we're going to approach it now, since me and the new person's in, and it's just been kind of like crazy with everything. So we've been working on it, but we don't have that final idea yet. But it's something that we definitely feel is important, that we do have the diversity and everybody's treated equally, and that we recognize and all the different groups and different people within the organization. And so that's our main focus, is really trying to make sure that as an agency across the board, we're recognizing everyone and everybody's having equal chances as everyone else.
I think having somebody with your style, your personality, your experience coming into the diversity, equity, and inclusion sector is key, because, of course, in the talks that we've had, I understand you to be very calm, soothing, a warm, welcoming presence, and you're very empathetic to others, right? You mentioned that you're an empath, and so being able to understand different perspectives and tying that in on how to improve on maybe existing strategies or policies that have been implemented is key. Now that you have a fresh perspective kind of coming into this co-chair position fairly recently, I think it could only benefit your organization having somebody like you at the forefront. I appreciate that you take the time to consider everyone around you, as opposed to making it about Sheila, right? Like that's not really somebody we would want in a leadership position, especially when it comes to diversity of thought, right? You have to be willing to hear other folks' perspective and consider that into, making it more fully fledged and more efficient for all parties involved.
Absolutely.
What don't you do at this point? You're HR specialist, you got Reiki experience, you co-chair the diversity and inclusion programs. What don't you do? Like what are, let me ask you this, what are some just non-related hobbies that you enjoy?
I enjoy, and I don't know if this is a hobby, but I love music. Absolutely listen to it. I can't produce music or anything, but I love it. Dancing. When I'm in the right frame of mind, writing is so therapeutic for me. To have that creative juices flowing is great. And I have grandchildren, so I spend time with them. That's therapeutic for me too. Just enjoying them and seeing them growing, again, inspiring their lives too. Because I think for me, that's one of my biggest things, is inspiring people. Because I just really want to see, when I say everyone, I want to see everyone happy, living their best lives. So that's, and of course I love a good movie, and I'll be honest, I am a reality TV girl. Uh-oh. Yes, I am. It's an escape, it's no real thought to it. You just watch it. And that's another way for me to actually kind of relax, is I watch these people on reality shows and it's no real thought to it, and I'm just watching them.
Right.
So, but I used to be avid about working out at the gym. I am striving to get back into that now, because I had broke my toe and I was out for a while, but I'm getting back into that. So just things like that. And I really want to start doing more, honestly, within the community, meaning like serving food to the homeless and things like that. Because again, I love helping other people, and that's where I get my most joy.
So let's say somebody is looking to get into similar line of work. If we're talking Sycamores or, the HR specialist work, dealing with the at-risk youth and some sort of support role, what do you think from a soft and hard skills standpoint would be beneficial for these folks to bring in to that experience? What are some soft skills that they would need to have and some hard skills that you think they would need to have?
Well, I think one, you have to have the want to help other people. That's a big part of it, because HR is really a lot about, be it if you're doing benefits, leave of absence, hiring, things like that. You have to want to help other people. It has to be important to you to impact other people's lives. You have to be a great communicator. You have to know how to, what's the word I want? I can't think of the word, but you have to, sometimes you can't talk about certain things. I can't think of a word I want right now, but
discretion?
You have to be, yes, thank you.
Awesome.
Very much so, because there's things you just cannot talk about. And then as far as like schooling or anything like that, a lot of people within HR have degrees. There's human resources management, but there's also a lot of people either have business or psychology or sociology. A lot of people, that's what I've seen the degrees in.
Okay.
And it's just, like I said, really that willingness to want to help other people, and paperwork, and
right.
Laptop or computer software, be able to navigate different softwares and things like that. But, and even spreadsheets, because we do that a lot, and all those. And actually, I think I said good communicator, but also writing, being a good writer also. But you have to be able to say things in a certain way.
The ability to orate.
Yes. There you go.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I think that spans across, correct me if I'm wrong, but almost every industry. You've got to be able to communicate effectively to some degree, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. I appreciate that. So folks getting into those type of industries, they may undertake a line of sociology, maybe HR, educational pathway, or business management to some degree. You've got to be knowledgeable in the computer programs and Excel, different educational tools, maybe on software programs, right? Because there's, I know I've worked in like case management in past history as a support staff, similar to what you do. We had to be pretty versed in some tools, right? Different technology tools, especially, in this time and age, right? A lot of things are electronic or automated or digitized now at this point. So you want to step into that industry with some good, hard computer skills to be able to set yourself apart from other professionals. So there's not a specific degree necessarily required for the work, but it would be good to have one of those educational pathways to kind of help you stand apart.
Yes, and I'll emphasize again on the psychology, only because you are working, the type of work that human resources does. You're working with these employees, and you have all different types of personalities. There's situations that might be really hard, or there's people, who might get sick, and it's just, you have to know how to really approach people, communicate with them. And so the psychologist, that helps a lot when you do that type of degree, because now you have all this knowing about people, what makes them tick, how they function, and why is this person maybe thrown off a little bit. It's important to know all that in human resources because of the different areas and the different things. You're dealing with medical coverage, or you're dealing with sometimes, sadly, the loss of a loved one and things like that. So you just have to be able to know how to really have that empathy and to be there for that person in that moment, how to hold space for them.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, that I appreciate you calling that out. That makes sense. So you touched on a few of these topics here, but if you could tie it nicely together here in a bow, walk us through a typical day from the time you enter the office to the time you leave. What's a typical work day look like for you?
Typical work day is, well, I actually work from home and I go in only for certain meetings and things like that. But typically I get up in the morning, like I said, do my meditation, all that, and I, get ready, so forth, get my coffee. I get my coffee right before I sit down at my desk because regardless of what's happening, I strive to get up like I am going into the office because there might be one day I do have to go back in and I have to be mentally. So I get dressed, everything, and I just check my emails. That's where I start. And depending on what the emails or any phone calls or messages I might have, this kind of dictates how my day's going to go. But typically, it's reading through the emails, responding to emails, reaching out to certain people that I might need information from. If a person is leaving the agency, there's certain steps I have to take because I take care of that whole process. And anything that comes in between, different calls, emergencies, last minute things, and just, being ready just to put out the fires as necessary when there's fires. And I'm going to go back to when COVID was rapid. I was a person who managed the COVID. And that was at times very, very, very challenging days because we have so many people, contacting us, and there was one point I was working all day until late at night, but I had to get this done. But I also set up processes to make things easier or go a little faster. And that's one of the things, and I'm kind of jumping and I'm sorry about that, but I tend to look at processes. If there's holes in it, if one person says, oh, well, this happened, then I'm going to look at the process and say, okay, how can we change it so it doesn't happen again? So I'm constantly doing that within my position too. And there's a couple of processes I have changed since I've been here. And even with the COVID process, I'm the one who actually created that.
Oh, wow. Wow. So you have a keen eye to like detail, process improvement.
Yes.
And okay. No, that's awesome. If you had to pinpoint one thing, what is the biggest joy you get out of the work that you currently do?
Touching people's lives, making a difference. And when I say for like our employees, sometimes it's just listening to them, them being heard. And that's what gives me joy, is when I know that, especially if it's something that's kind of complicated and I was able to get the results for them, and that giving them their joy gives me joy.
I love it.
And
bringing joy gives you joy.
And that is really every area of my life, my personal life, my social media life, any of it. When I know that somehow I made a difference in that person's day, it's not about me, even though I am that person did it, but it's about seeing them. And also what's important to me is people need to know that they matter, period. And even with my job. So if someone is maybe complaining about something, I sit there and listen, and I listen with attention to make sure they know that they matter. And that is what's so important to me. Everybody matters, and they need to know that they matter, because one of the worst feelings that I've experienced personally is feeling like I didn't matter. So I always want to bring that to people. You matter, and I'm going to listen to you, and I'm going, even though it might be something way out there, but I'm still going to listen.
Yeah. Man, That's imperative, is to make people feel like they matter, that their voices can be heard. And that's, ultimately what inspired me to start this channel, right? Is giving folks like yourself, these talented professionals who are giving back to the communities, a voice and a platform to be heard, because we do matter. These folks do matter. And I want to give you that chance to branch out and reach even more individuals potentially who could hear your story and get inspired to do something similar, or provide their, gift back to the communities that they serve in. So I appreciate you taking the time to expound on that. Folks who want to get connected better to you, hear your story a little bit more, or just reach out to you personally, where can they find you? What type of socials do you have? Can you plug something for us?
Yes, I am on Instagram. I'm Sheila D35, and I'm also on TikTok, the same handle, and on Facebook. But I don't know how much longer I'm going to be on Facebook. But on Facebook, it's just Sheila Domingue.
Awesome. Any last words for you before we let you head off?
I just want to say thank you for inviting me to have this moment with you and to share some of what I do. And I really enjoyed this conversation. It's been great. And like I said, I just really, as much as possible, want to strive, I should say, to make a difference in people's lives. And I'm just going to touch on, I say strive and not try. Try is more like, I'm going to try to do this. But when you're striving, when you strive, it's a more positive.
Yeah, you're actually taking actionable steps to get some outcome. For sure.
Yes.
Man, I appreciate you, Sheila. Thank you again. It's an honor and a pleasure to have this conversation with you. I appreciate you taking time out of your day to talk to me, to talk to the audience, and let folks get to know a little bit more about who you are and how you give back to your community.
Yes, I absolutely have enjoyed this. Thank you.
Thank you.